Welcome to the Autism Blueprint podcast. I'm your host, Janine Hovitz, and it's my goal to help you create a more peaceful home while living with autistic and neurodivergent loved ones. Each episode, we focus on a different room in the house and help you create a peace plan for your home. So let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome to Autism Blueprint. Today I have a quick tip for you, 10 of them actually. I want to talk about the limiting beliefs of the autism spectrum parent. And by limiting beliefs, I mean that all of us have beliefs that we carry that we may or may not even be aware of that affect the way we behave in the world and the way that we handle problems, and in particular, the way that we raise our children. So I'm going to go through about 10 of these, and these are limiting beliefs that I have noticed in myself and in my clients as well. And they pretty much always tend to be similar. So let's review a couple of them now. The first limiting belief I want to jump into today is that I have to keep my family happy and together, and that is my job as a parent. And this is something that I tried to do as far as keeping my family happy for probably a good decade. And I'm here to tell you that it is nearly impossible for you as the parent to make sure that everybody in the house is happy. Now, we can take care of their needs, we can nurture our family members, but in order to really survive autism parenting and thrive as a family, we need to remember that everybody's responsible for their own happiness in the family. And so that is something that that I would consider a healthy boundary, and something that we work on here in my office and in the groups that I run, because it really does take a lot of the pressure off when you don't believe, as the mom of the family or as the dad of the family, it's my job to make everybody happy and keep everybody together and connected. That belief has run me ragged at times. The second one is that it all depends on me. I hear so many moms in particular, it doesn't seem to happen too much with the dads, but the moms tend to take on probably more than we need to. Sometimes we take on more because other people in the family aren't. Sometimes we feel kind of that heaviness and that weight of running the household on our shoulders. Definitely speaking from experience here, and kind of that idea of, well, if I don't do it, who will? So I just want to encourage you that if you find yourself getting resentful over the things that you're doing, resentment is usually a signal that there's a boundary that needs to be set, or that you're doing something beyond what you feel like you're actually able to do. The third limiting belief is that I should be able to do this and I can't ask for help. Asking for help is a really important skill, and something that we have to model for our kids and for our families. And it's not something that comes easily. Most women that I meet, and again, I'm saying women because I see mostly moms in my practice, a couple of dads, but mostly moms who just don't want to ask for help for fear that they'll be judged, whether that help is from a professional or a friend or a family member. It's really hard for us to ask for help. So that can be a belief that can really keep us stuck. The fourth limiting belief that we often have is that I don't have time for fill in the blank. So usually these are the good things in life, right? I don't have time for lunch. I don't have time for sleep. I don't have time for socializing. And I hear you, especially if your kiddos are little and you're taking them to, 5 or 6 different therapies, and you're trying to figure out how to give enough time to the siblings and your marriage and everything else that goes along with it. It's difficult to find the time for the things that will feed you and nurture you. But if you're telling yourself you don't have the time for it, and that's your limiting belief, you're going to believe it, because we believe the things that we constantly tell ourselves, even if it's subconscious, even if we're not aware. So being more aware of the things that you're saying to yourself and to other people. I caught myself one time saying, oh gosh, I just don't have time to, join a book group, or I don't have time to go to the gym, or, the truth is we do make time for the things that are important. And I think that is a belief that I don't have time for. That belief can really, really keep us stuck. That is one that's really affected me for sure. The fifth one is one that I hear a lot, which is, no one else can take care of my child like I can. And while this is true, 100% true, you know your child the best. The best care that they receive is most likely with you. And often if you have a child who is not verbally able to express themselves reliably, it can feel like, why would I leave my child with a babysitter who doesn't know him or her as well as I do? And the answer to that is because you need a break. You need a break, even if it's for half an hour to go for a walk. You need a break, even if it's just to not be on high alert all the time. I know a lot of you, like us, have a child who, if they get out of the house, they can't keep themselves safe, or they wouldn't be able to tell a police officer where they lived, things like that. And that can cause a lot of stress on a family. It can cause a lot of stress on you as a mom or a dad, because that high alert means that, it's the same high alert that I remember having when I first brought our infants home from the hospital, right? You feel like, especially if it's your first child, like, oh my gosh, I have to keep this little person alive. And it tends to still feel like that as your child ages if they're developmentally delayed. So it's going to be really important that belief of no one else can take care of my child like I can, making sure that belief doesn't keep you stuck from hiring other people or asking for help from other people. Basically, you're right. Nobody else can take care of your child like you can. But the downside of that is that if you never have a sitter, you never have a break, and that's going to wreak havoc on your health, mental and physical. The seventh limiting belief of the autism spectrum parent is that I must be available at all times for my child. Now, this kind of goes hand in hand with no one else can take care of my child like I can, but it also speaks to the parent's inability to kind of let go a little bit, even if it's just for an hour. So one of the things that I had to do when I became a therapist was put my phone away, right? Nobody wants to come see a therapist that has their phone out, checking messages from their family. That just wouldn't be professional, and it wouldn't be a good idea. So I have had to trust that whoever my child is with while I'm at work has their best interest, is taking care of them, and that whatever's going down that day, unless it's life-threatening, can wait until I get home. And this is kind of like anxiety can take over in our bodies sometimes, where we have this need to know, right? We're checking things all the time. We're either checking social media or checking our texts or checking to see if the babysitter has called, or gosh, checking to see if the school has called, which I get that 100%. We've gotten more than our fair share of calls from schools. But to be able to, especially if you're going to, go to the grocery store for an hour, or maybe you're going to go out to lunch with a friend, just being able to set aside even a short amount of time, even to just say, for this next half hour, I'm turning my phone off and I'll check it when I'm done. It's a hard thing to do, but it's been one of the best ways that I can keep my mental sanity, really, is just to be able to understand that I don't have to be available for my child every second of every day. The eighth limiting belief of an autism spectrum parent is I can't show my feelings. And to dig into that a little bit more, it's I can't be sad about my child's autism. I can't be angry about my child's autism because I don't want to be angry at my child, or they're doing the best they can, or they've made so much progress. I don't want to, judge the issue that they're dealing with. And the truth is, we have to learn how to hold two things at the same time, because most of life is holding two things at the same time. In this case, it's okay to show my feelings at the right time and place, and it's okay to have these feelings. There are days, y'all, I had one this weekend where I just woke up and said, gosh, I really just don't feel like being a special needs parent today. That being said, I had to do it. But if we try to push away those feelings that we sometimes wake up with, and I know what you guys are dealing with. I deal with it too. And because I'm a therapist, I hear all the time that parents wake up at 3 a.m. and they have concerns, or, they dread weekends because because there's no school, or they dread summer vacation. It's okay to feel these things. In fact, I would recommend that you find at least one person in your life that you can go to and say, here's how I'm feeling about this today. And that it's a safe person, someone that's not going to judge you, someone that's not going to use it against you later, and someone that isn't going to say, oh, you shouldn't feel that way. I have a friend. Her name is JC. She's been my best friend since our kids were little. And she's the one that I can text and say, pack your bags, let's go. I want to run away from home. And we know it's not serious, but we kid around and, we'll say, do you want to go to the mountains or do you want to go to the beach? And we'll just kind of have this fantasy of, geez, if we could run away, wouldn't that be cool? And we can't, but we can commiserate with each other as far as, understanding how each other feels about it and saying, it's okay. So if you guys need permission to have those negative thoughts, I'm giving it to you. You can absolutely have those feelings. It's a complicated thing. The 9th limiting belief of the autism spectrum parent is that I'm not a good parent if my child misbehaves. So let's kind of break this down a little bit. We love to celebrate when our children do great things. If they make honor roll, if they get a lead in the school play, get into a great college, whatever it is. Not only do we like to celebrate it, but we like to go, that's my kid, right? Of course we do. We want to be proud. But the funny thing is too, that when our kids misbehave, we feel shame because we somehow think that we should have been able to do something about that. And, the reality is our children, and particularly our neurodivergent children, they have a lot of difficulty managing their emotions, managing their anxiety, managing all the sensory input that comes in. So they're going to have more issues. They're going to have more struggles. They're going to have more dysregulation in their bodies. And rather than treating it like this is a bad behavior, I want to encourage you guys to see it as my child's having a hard time. And that will help you not only have more empathy for your child, but you'll have more empathy for yourself, because you can have a child who misbehaves and still be a good parent. Because if you couldn't, I wouldn't consider myself a good parent. You guys have heard my stories before. My son has a lot of trouble with regulation, and that it has, it's resulted in him, escaping from the house or breaking things at times. And it took me a while to realize, he's not doing this to make my life miserable. And he's not doing this because he wants to. Every child is doing the best that they can. And sometimes it's not great, but it's definitely not a reflection on whether or not you're a good parent. And the last limiting belief is the experts know best, so I need to do what they tell me. Now, again, we can hold two things, right? I'm not telling you don't listen to the experts. I'm saying if a doctor, clinician, therapist, anyone, teacher, tells you something about your child and it doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel comfortable, you can disagree. You don't have to do it. I remember when my son was first diagnosed and they said, the gold standard recommendation is 40 hours a week of ABA therapy. I didn't want to do it. He didn't like it. He wasn't jiving with it. And it wasn't something that I was comfortable doing. So that was hard because to buck the system with something that's considered the gold standard for autism, it's a difficult thing. I've had parents also tell me that a teacher has, reprimanded your child for something, and a lot of times it's this, right? Your child's dysregulated, they act out, and the child then gets in trouble, but isn't given the opportunity to maybe talk about why they did what they did. Maybe they had a sensory need. Maybe they were having a meltdown and were trying to hold it together, whatever it is. And so many times schools in particular will kind of give this punishment or this, consequence. And as a parent, you might be looking at that going, I know my kid and I think there was more to this. So I just want to make sure that you don't constantly hold that belief that every expert out there knows best. If you feel like your child is not making progress in a therapy that they've been in for a while, if you feel like a doctor is not a good fit for your child, and if there's just something that doesn't sit right, I really want you to listen to that inner guidance that we have as parents, because it's super crucial. So that's all I have for you today. Those are the 10 most limiting beliefs of the autism spectrum parent that I see in my office. And, share with me in the comments if you experience any of these limiting beliefs and if you have any other advice to share. Appreciate it. Take care.
The information in this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for help from a licensed mental health professional.